All right, Argonaut fans, welcome back to the Argonaut Weekly here at GoArgos.com. Rob Walden along with head men's basketball coach Bob Stinnett here to wrap up the 2010-2011 season for the Argonauts. Men's basketball finished 9-17, 2-10 in GSC play. Coach, I know going into the season, one of the big goals, maybe the primary goal for your team, was to qualify for GSC postseason competition. Didn't quite reach that goal. Did have some highlights, though. Big victory over Valdosta State, first time in 12 years. A nice stretch in December where you won 5 out of 6. So up and down, didn't reach the GSC, did have some positive things to reflect on.
You searched hard to find all those positives, I promise you. No, we were very disappointed. We really thought that we could have made it to the tournament this year, and it was a very disappointing year. We had some injuries, but so does everybody else. Sure. No excuses there. I think where I made my mistake is when we recruited a lot of junior college kids. Being a junior college coach in the past and recruiting 12 different high school kids, bringing them into a junior college program, it wasn't that hard for me to get them on the same page. But bringing junior college kids into a 4-year program proved to be a little bit more difficult. Now, I've tried to analyze why, and I think the reason is junior college kids still have another level to go to, so they need that, they'll take that direction more. When these kids get here, I've always asked D1, when I just got back from the SEC tournament, I talked to some of the D1 coaches there, and they only recruit junior college kids for a specific need. Right. A rebound, a shooting, a point guard, whatever. And the reason is they think they can only get 1 year out of the kid because he's got to adjust to the school, he's got to adjust to the new coach, he's got to adjust to new teammates, he's got to adjust to the new league.
A completely new level of basketball.
New level of basketball, to higher up. So we've got all of our kids back. We only had 1 senior. So hopefully, I expected us to win 14, 15 games this year, and we won 9. So it was a very disappointing year. But I just hope we're not a year behind, because I was hoping we'd win 14 or 15 this year and try to win 19 or 20 next year. But we got everybody back but Daryl McGee.
Right.
And provided everybody does what they're supposed to do in their academic field, which so far they're on track to do.
Sure.
So, and we've got 2, possibly 3 scholarships to recruit. So we're out there trying to get fill our needs for that, and then hopefully next year all these kids will have all this experience under them, not only Gulf South Conference, but under me, and hopefully we'll have a better performance next year.
Consistency at times was an issue for you guys, both on a micro level and on the season as a whole. Played very well in December, won 5 out of 6, faded a little bit toward the end. Even individual players, Jamar Moore had a stretch of 5 straight 20-plus games. Also had a stretch in January where he didn't score 2 out of 4 games, and that was kind of the theme for a lot of guys. As you try to get those guys more consistent in the offseason, how do you do that? What steps can be taken to make individual guys more consistent, which would then make the team more consistent?
Well, Rob, I think what will make them more consistent is familiarity with the league, familiarity with the players in the league that they got to go against, and familiarity with our offense and knowing what we want as coaches. I think that'll be a better issue for us next year, the consistency end of it. But you're right, when Jamar Moore doesn't score, we're in trouble, and he's a very talented individual. But there's a couple of games there where he went out to lunch and forgot to come back.
Sure.
And but overall, I thought he had a good year, a decent year. I thought he should have had a better year than he had. But I think next year is even going to be his best year to look forward, because he's a hard kid to guard. He's 6'5", 220, and he can play a lot of positions for us. But you're right. We went up and played Delta and beat Delta. We beat Lynn at Lynn. We beat Valdosta here. We went to Alaska in the tournament. We beat the team that won the tournament in Alaska. And we showed glimpses of what we could do and should do, but we didn't do it all year. So hopefully next year, with all this experience coming back, and with the 2 or 3 new recruits we get in, we should be in better shape.
Jamar got all GSC honors, second team, as did Marquise Mathis, both of them well-deserved. And we saw glimpses from those guys when they've got their head on straight, when they're playing at their highest level. Marquise especially can really take a game over, can dominate down on the low block, rebounding, as well as scoring 20 points or more on a given night.
Yeah, I thought those were 2 good choices. Marquise, from January on, I thought Marquise really played well for us. November and December, he was struggling. and he was wanting to play more outside than inside, but being one of our bigger players, we had to convince him he needed to play inside, and he accepted it, and he's done a good job from that point on. But I thought those two were deserving of what they got.
Point guard was one position where it seemed like there was unrest, maybe isn't the best word, but there was a lot of rotation. Mike Lewis played a lot of point. Jamel Brazil, of course, he was injured, sick for part of the season, but he played a lot of point while he was in there. We saw Keldrick White run the point in different games. Obviously, Jamar Moore moved to the point from time to time. But, most great teams have that consistent point guard who runs the offense. When you're out on the recruiting trail, you mentioned 2, maybe 3 scholarships to recruit it. Is point guard one of those positions that you look at to bring a guy in?
Rob, it's primary. Wade and I have talked about this all year. Some of the names you mentioned, Mike Lewis, Keldrick White, Jamel Brazil, those kids I thought were going to solve that problem. But for whatever reason, we couldn't get it done. Some was injuries, some were injury prone, some were just that just didn't settle into the role that they needed.
Sure.
But all good ball clubs have a very good point guard, and great ball clubs have a great point guard, and we need to resolve that. I think with Keldrick's only being a sophomore and coming back next year, I think, plus we're going to recruit a point guard. We don't know if we're going to go through the junior college route or if we're going to go through the high school route. Or we may do 2 point guards. We may go junior college and high school, because we need to get away from the junior college stuff and just go for specific needs.
Sure.
And we need to bring in the high school kids. They're in the program 4 and 5 years, 5 if they get redshirted or whatever, get injured or whatever. So it gives you more stability in your program. So, but you're right, you nailed it. Point guard was a huge fault for us, and we have to resolve that, and we're trying to do that as we speak.
You guys had a very interesting schedule this year, a schedule that grabbed a lot of headlines. You mentioned already the Alaska trip, which I know is probably a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Opened the season with a guarantee game down at UCF, who went on to have a very good season in Conference USA. As you put together the schedule for next year, and I know a lot of that happens during the summer and in the months leading up to the season, but do you hope to kind of replicate that schedule as far as noteworthy games? And I see you shaking your head.
No.
It's obviously not starting with 7 games on the road. Yeah.
That was my fault. I guess kind of got carried away, I guess, over the summer. I guess I just got carried away. Yeah. I just thought with some of this talent we brought in that we would be able to do better than we did, but we didn't do that well. But no, we're going to, with our Gulf South Conference closing, shrinking a little bit, we play everybody home and everything. We'll have more home games, obviously, and it'll help our scheduling. And we're looking to go to Las Vegas and play in a tournament this year in Las Vegas. And then we're scheduled to go to Carson Newman and play in a tournament up there. And then we're going to have a tournament of our own. So the schedule's not all done, but it's about 90% done.
Gotcha.
And Coach Anderson's one responsible for doing that. I picked up the Las Vegas one like I did the Alaska trip. Every time he leaves town, I'm always messing I'm always messing with the schedule.
Putting you guys back
so
on the road.
The moral of the story, I tell Coach Anderson, don't leave town. Stay here and take care of the business.
The Valdosta State win, I guess, had to be the highlight of the season. Obviously, you guys had gotten swept by them last year, lost the first game to VSU up at their place after playing them tough for about 35 minutes. And, in fact, the program hadn't beat Valdosta State in the last 6 years. So I know to get that weight off of your shoulder, obviously they're probably our most regional rival within the GSC and a team that's had a lot of success in the NCAA regionals. To get that victory over them late in the season, I guess it is kind of the crowning achievement, the highlight moment of the season.
Yeah, you would have to say so. It's a conference foe, like you say, a rival. Valdosta, that particular game, our 3 sophomores showed up. Peter Cannoli and Keldrick White and I'm missing the other sophomore, Terrence Beasley.
Right.
Those 3 showed up to play that game. And I expected those 3 to be like that 80% of the year. But for whatever reason, Peter had a hurt foot and was down and out. Beasley was up and down all year, being a transfer from Tulane. And he played for me in high school, and I know what Bees is capable of doing. And we never touched that this year. Bees touched about half of what he could do. Hopefully next year, maybe that was a sophomore jinx, I don't know. But yeah, the Valdosta game and A few of the other games showed what we could do, but we weren't consistent all year. But Valdosta, that we played well. We showed up, played well, and we did it on the defensive end too. We were able to guard some people. Because we went to Valdosta, like you said, we played well for about 30, 35 minutes, and that was probably the focus of a lot of our games. We played well for 30, 35 minutes, and we'd lose our focus for 5 minutes, and then instead of being 1 or 2 or 3 down, now we're 9 or 10 down, and there's 3 minutes to go, and then we're playing catch up. And then we end up taking some bad shots to try to get back in the game or whatever, or we miss a few free throws coming down the stretch. And I tell our kids all the time, it's a free throw. It's not a molested throw. No one's guarding you.
Right.
It's free. Make it.
Right.
You know?
You mentioned Daryl McGee, the only player who's not coming back for you guys. So it's the off season now, and unlike a lot of teams, you almost have your entire roster to work with in the off season, but still 8 months away from competitive games, and especially for college kids, 8 months can seem like an eternity. How do you keep these guys focused, and what do you work on from an individual skill standpoint, from a conditioning standpoint, as a team? What do you work on in the off season to hopefully improve the win total next year?
Well, the NCAA allows us 2 hours a week of individual skills, and you're allowed 4 players to do that. And we'll do some, while we're working on defensive stuff, because we turned the ball over way too many times last year, and defensively we gave up way too many points. So everything we're doing in individual skills is defensive oriented. All our drills, all our conditioning, everything's defensive oriented. And you're limited, like all the NCAA Division IIs. You're allowed those 2 hours a week. We work with them, and the other parts they're in the weight room trying to get better. And then when school's out, they're on their own.
Right.
And then when school starts back, then we start up on our individual skills and we get started again. But you're right, there's that period of time where they get in bad habits. They start going out playing on their own and pick up games and stuff, and they practice bad habits.
Right.
So we just got to get October the 15th on. We got to try to get rid of all those bad habits.
Well, Coach, I know the season maybe didn't quite turn out like you guys wanted it to, but congratulations on the victories that you guys did have. A lot of fun covering you this season, and hopefully we'll see you again next year and ready to go for another season here in Pensacola.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.